What's this? Another satisfied graduate of the New York City Cab Driving Academy? Who is that little creep? Some mugger after my money? Heck, if I could find any on me, I'd split it with him.
Hello everyone, thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fansite that I have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. We're continuing our run of one of my favorite eras of Spider-Man, the 1980s. I really enjoy that, and I started with the beginning of Roger Stern's run with issue 224, and we're gonna go right through it. We're just gonna pick up an issue throughout his run. You know, it'll probably take a while at this rate, but that's okay. I got time. So, Amazing Spider-Man 225 from 1981. This cover here, this era of Spider-Man, there was certainly the look that was done by Marvel to make sure. It's kind of like DC Comics with Superman. They all wanted to make sure that Superman looked pretty much the same by everybody. The house style, well, Spider-Man definitely had a house style as well. So, all right. Stan Lee presents a trip down the dark alley of the mind with Spider-Man. Fools like us. And so we start out here. New York's Bowery is not a nice place to be at any time. In the wee hours before dawn, it's particularly bad. And so nice little posters behind. And so we have two FBI agents here. And this guy here says, "Trust me, Lou, once we put the kibosh on this guy, our reps will be made." And Lou says, "I still think I should have my head examined for letting you talk me into this. Will you put that gun away? This isn't the Gangster Chronicles. You're going to get us killed." Nice background here. The garbage of the seedy alley here, the dumpster, the garbage cans full. I mean, you look like you're in New York in the 1980s. So we got our credits here. Roger Stern is the writer. Roger Stern is a really good writer, and with all the garbage that Marvel is putting out today, you would think there would be a spot for Roger Stern somewhere, but alas, there is not. John Romita Jr., this is pre-X-Men. So after Iron Man, before X-Men, is the penciler with Bob Wiacek doing the inks. Well, when they put him as artist, normally you would think it's probably layouts of some kind with Bob Wiacek finishing. So, who knows? And then Tom DeFalco, who will eventually succeed Jim Shooter as editor-in-chief, is the editor. And of course, Jim Shooter is still the editor-in-chief, and he will be for a couple more years. I refer to this as Marvel's Golden Age. A lot of good stories were coming out during Shooter's term. And so this FBI agent says, "You worry too much, Lou. If you want to get anywhere in the Bureau, you have to show initiative. Besides, it's not like we're trying to catch Spider-Man or something." And Lou says, "No, we're just trying to find a mass psychotic killer who's been missing long enough for his case to be put in the low priority files. He knows we're after him. You have us playing Junior G-Man. He could be leading us into a trap." And the FBI agent says, "Undoubtedly, but I'll match my marksmanship against the psychos any day of the week." And Lou says, "What if he doesn't show up?" "Oh, he'll show." Very 80s, reminiscent of the 80s movie with the gun ready to go. And then he takes out this piece of paper, and he says here, "I have his written assurance that he'll meet us here." And Lou says, "How do you know that note isn't fake?" And he says, "But no, because no one who's alive would have one of these cards to staple at the back of the letter. The Foolkiller will be here. All we have to do is wait for him. Of course, the Foolkiller says, you have 24 hours to live. Use them to repent, or be forever damned to the pits of hell. Where goeth all fools. Today is the last day of the rest of your life. Use it wisely, or die a fool. And suddenly, he's hit here, and he's turned into a pile of ash. So he's basically incinerated. Nice inking here. A lot of dry brushing being done here as well. So, and very reminiscent of that era of the 70s and still continuing on the 80s where we just put lines. And so Lou starts running, and he thinks as he's running away, I tried to warn him from the very start. I told him it was crazy to check out a case we weren't assigned to, but he never listened. We'll investigate it in our spare time, he said. Solve a couple of these nutcases, and we'll be the chief's fair-haired boys. So, oh, poor Sam, and his initiative cost him his life. Should have put his name right in the beginning here. So Sam was the guy we got killed. And so Lou continues to run. And if I don't get out of here, it'll cost me mine, as the Foolkiller keeps trying to shoot at him. The last blast knocked me off my feet. There's nowhere to run. Now I'll have to. And he starts to take his gun, but it's hit and disintegrates here. And he's in agony. It looks like he's cowering, but he's in agony. And the Foolkiller comes down and says, I believe you were looking for me, fool. And so Foolkiller continues, you shouldn't have tried to find me. I'd all but given up my crusade to rid the world of fools. There are too many I found, just too many. I decided months ago only to kill the greatest fools I encountered. I'm afraid you qualify, he says here. And so this is he's one of these villains that is, I wouldn't even say, I say D-list. He's a D-list villain. So, and Lou says, you won't get away with this. The Bureau will find you. When Sam and I turn up missing, they'll search our apartments and find the notes we left behind. And so he takes them out. He says, you mean these? And then he disintegrates poor Lou and then burns the notes. And so the Foolkiller says, and now I believe there's just one more fool that I must kill. So, all right. And so we're in Empire State University. Peter is going to school. And so Peter Parker is giving a lecture to a group of freshmen, and he's frustrated because they don't know the answer to this question. And then when the lecture ends, Peter is greeted by Greg Sanger here, this blonde guy here. He's an English literature major who Peter had befriended, and he had imparted to him a love of science. And so Peter says, hey, I thought I missed you in class because Greg was late. And he tells him that he was late for class because the admission office still can't find his scholarship paperwork. Peter says that this has been quite a problem with students in recent days, and Greg hopes to get it straightened out things before he takes matters into their own hands. So you can see here as Peter is heading out here, he's exhausted due to his recent activities as Spider-Man. And despite his fatigue, Peter's spider sense is going off. And you can see that here as he sees this guy climbing on the side of the registration office here. So Peter runs and decides, well, I'm going to turn into Spider-Man. So inside here, we see Harvey McNamara. He's having to work overtime. He's like, I hate this blasted paperwork. If the dean wasn't breathing down my neck, I'd let it wait another month. And you can see Foolkiller here is starting to climb up here. And so McNamara continues here. If they just give me the extra secretaries I requested, this stuff wouldn't pile up. And Foolkiller says, your time is up, McNamara. He's like, who? Don't tell me you weren't expecting the Foolkiller. And he's like, what? I wasn't expecting anyone. And he says, didn't you get my card in the mail? And he's like, what card? And I love this. Blast the postal service. You should have received it yesterday. Well, no matter. You've been a fool for too long, McNamara. This is your finish. And then suddenly Spider-Man shows up and he says, hi there. Am I late for the party? You'll have to excuse me. It took my chauffeur forever to find a parking space for the limo. So, and of course, Foolkiller's like, Spider-Man, Y-E-E-S. Have we been introduced? And McNamara is like, now I'll never get those papers processed. I think I'd be safe from those maniacs. Back here. But my poor desk, as Foolkiller keeps shooting off. And so Spider-Man, of course, keeps teasing Foolkiller because that's what he does here. And you can see Foolkiller hits the ceiling here, causing it to come down here. And it comes crashing on Spider-Man, and Foolkiller gets away. He says, I'll settle with you later, McNamara. As for you, Spider-Man, don't cross the Foolkiller again. Live a poem or die a fool, he says. So uses the cape as a parachute and then gets down here. And he thinks here, I must get away quickly. I'm not prepared to tackle someone like Spider-Man. Not yet. And so McNamara's like, what are you waiting for? Stop that maniac, as it's probably the sprinkler system's going in there. He ruined my paperwork. He wrecked my office. He called me a fool. And Spider-Man's like, not to mention he tried to kill you, eh? So Foolkiller now is running out, and he says, must formulate a plan of escape. I'm making good time, but it may not be good enough. Not if Spider-Man is as fast as I've heard. So Spider-Man does eventually catch up to him. This looks so disproportionate here. I look at these and I'm like, why am I not working at Marvel? But then you see today's artists and they are just wonderful. So John Romita Jr. gets better. At least that's my opinion. I know some people don't like him. I don't know why. I think he's a solid penciler here. And anyway, so Foolkiller gets away by blasting the ground here, the sidewalk, and he goes and hops, and I don't know if you can see it right there where my little mouse is, but he landed right on the subway, and so he gets away. So Foolkiller comes out and goes into his trailer here, and you can see all this computer gizmos in there, and he is going to he's going to try and get some rest here. And so he goes here. So he goes over his computer files and he recalls Richard Rory. Okay, sorry. He saved Richard Rory from Ross Everest, the original Foolkiller here. And then, of course, the Man-Thing is what he became. Sorry, it just that was a little confusing for me. Sorry about that. And so this is telling us this happened in Man-Thing number 1 and number 4 here. And Foolkiller says, how ironic that Rich's salvation from one Foolkiller should enable him to inspire another. No, it's more than ironic. It's poetic. The only thing that's really wrong with the first Foolkiller's crusade was his confessed view of morality that equated sinners with fools. His erroneous ideas made him a fool himself, but I saw the rightness of his case, and I knew the true definition of a fool. Fool, one totally bereft of poetic nature. It would never have occurred to me to declare war on fools had I not met Richard Rory in prison. Just like myself, he had been unjustly jailed. I hated that place. I tried to tell them that I was innocent, but the fools wouldn't listen. Someday they will pay for that. Still, Richard almost made the place bearable with his stories of the man thing and inspiring tales of the Fool Killers. Ah, the Fool Killer. From the moment Richard told me about him, I knew that I must assume his mission. That idea burned at me night and day. Upon my release, I liberated the Fool Killer's equipment and threw myself into a period of intensive training here. So here he goes to breaks into the where the cops kept the thing in here. I later tracked Richard to New York to thank him for the inspiration he'd given me. Here I found an abundance of fools within hours of my arrival. I saved the Mystery Man Omega from the pathetic blockbuster. That was an Omega number 9. That was some title that they ran. But soon I turned my attention to bigger game, such as Hellcat and her fellow defenders. To my dismay, I found that I had misjudged the defenders. They were not quite as foolish as I had thought. And my estimates of their individual strength, particularly that of Valkyrie, were far too low. How well I remember that day. The skies wept as I was loaded into an ambulance. Like so many others before them, the paramedics thought me mad. The fools. And you can see here that, oh, such a trope. The ambulance goes down. The Fool Killer gets away. So, the authorities accused me of causing the wreck in the first place. Fools. At that point, I began to despair. I realized that I would need a better understanding of the poetic nature before I could slay the biggest of fools. Anyway, he kind of continues to monologue more stuff, but he finally, he is going a little crazy. Now I have the answer. Just as poetry is the highest form of self-expression, so must my abilities to perceive fools. I need merely wait for the fools to meddle with my life. By their very nature, they will seek me out so I can end their useless lives. Haha, it's so simple. So the next day at the Bugle here, you can see Peter coming in, and he's thinking here, James Jonah Jameson has been buying photos from Lance Bannon, photos that make Spider-Man look like a jerk or worse. If that's what he wants, that's what I'll give him, but I don't like contributing to my own bad publicity, but I need the money. And so he walks in and says, hi, Robbie. Is publishing's answer to the Ayatollah here? If you mean Jonah, he's in a meeting with the truckers union. I doubt that he'll be in a good mood when he comes out, Peter. And so he's got a roll of film here and says, well, this should brighten the day. A whole roll of film showing Spider-Man screwing up. And he goes, oh, if they're exclusives, I can put through a voucher for you. Great. Even Lance Bannon couldn't beat these beauties. And so Robbie says, Peter, let this old city editor give you some advice. Bannon's one of the best photographers to come down the pike in years, but he panders to Jonah's worst instincts. Don't stoop to his level. And Peter says, I don't want to, Robbie, but Spider-Man did let this Fool Killer guy get away. And he says, the Fool Killer, eh? And he says, you heard of him? And Robbie says, I only know that the police blotters have on him. He's a mass psychotic who thinks it's his duty to wipe out fools. And Peter says, in that case, we're all in trouble. Like the song says, everybody plays the fool sometimes. And of course, Jonah comes out and he is angry. Parker, you better not be wasting my employees' time with social visits. If you have business here, take care of it and get out. Huh, says Peter. It seems some people play the part better than others. Take care, Robbie. And Jonah's like, play the part. What's he yammering about, Robbie? And Robbie says, oh, nothing. So Spider-Man is going to go out and search for Fool Killer, but with no sign of him, he's going to go back and into school here, and he's going to change into Peter. Back then, he used to put his clothes on the webbing, And so, as he's changing here, his spider sense goes off. As he takes a peek, he sees Greg Salinger, and he wonders how come he's setting off his spider sense. Of course, if we can't figure it out, we know who's who here. And so, he talks to Greg here and learns that he sent more letters to the admissions office. And so and so Peter tells him, well, it's probably the people in the mailroom. They're being fools and all. So the room, and he's like, oh, well, that explains a lot, Pete. You've been a big help. So we've can already determine that Greg is the Foolkiller. And he says, see you later. Yeah, sure thing. But his spider sense goes off again. So Peter goes off to the teaching assistant's office, and here he finds Deborah Whitman here, and she's in an angry mood. And it turns out that her and Greg were into a heated argument, and it ended up with him calling her a fool and storming off, which now Peter puts two and two together. Hey, let's not say that Spider-Man can't figure things out, that he's maybe not quite the detective Batman is. So, all right. So, of course, we've got the mail room right here. Very cartoonish that they're being drawn. And in comes Foolkiller. And now he knows that that is the problem. And so he's going to basically kill everybody. And look at this, just causing all this destruction here. And Spider-Man comes through here. And look at all this mail that was in here. So it's causing all these shelves to fall down here. And so Spider-Man stops it, and Foolkiller is going to try to make a run for it, and he does make it home. And he says, Spider-Man has sealed his fate. I was willing to forgive him before, but his outlaw nature suggests a poetic soul, but no more, he says. So, and so, twice he sorted me, thus proving himself to be a fool. My computer contains information gathered from the federal data networks. They shall give me the knowledge I need to end his life. But Spider-Man breaks through the side of the container. And he says, it's over, Foolkiller. It's all over. And you can see here, Foolkiller is going to shoot at him, but Spider-Man gets out of the way here. Foolkiller flees into an alleyway here, and he is surprised or distracted here by this homeless woman, and he's going to threaten her life here. So Foolkiller says, I'm trying to avoid a gentleman called Spider-Man until the time I can devise a way to kill him. And she goes, huh? You're kidding, ain't ya? I mean, I seen that Spider-Man once. Anybody who'd go gunning for him would have to be a fool. And he goes, ah. And he says, you're right. And you can see here where he's aiming the gun here. And he goes, Spider-Man grabs the gun away. He's like, no, don't do this to me. You must let me kill myself. I am a fool. And Spider-Man says, no, I don't think so. You're no more a fool than anyone else. You're just very messed up. And so Spider-Man says he's crazy. He's like, I'm not crazy. I'm a fool. And so he takes it off. And of course, it is Greg here. And so Spider-Man says, take it easy, fella. You're not a fool. You're going to be okay. Believe it or not, I'm going to try to help you. You've been under a strain, and I know a place where you can get a nice long rest away from fools. So, next issue, romance, intrigue, and adventure highlight the spectacular return of the long-awaited return of the Black Cat. So, bit of confusion there at the end. I like the screen tones being applied here by Bob Wycheck here. So, Amazing Spider-Man 225 by Roger Stern, John Romita Jr., and Bob Wycheck. Like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.